Oh shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another edition of Tim Talks. And I am excited to be here because today we have one of my favorite people in the whole world that is going to be on with us today. I'm excited to hear him, and I'm excited to just have a great conversation. Before we get started, I want to make sure that everybody pushes the share button, the like button, the comment button, and if you have any questions, we want to make sure that we answer any questions that you may have. But today I'm excited because we're going to go a little deeper into our Tim Talk conversation. First session that we had was with my dad, Dr. Alfonso Jackson Sr. And man, that was an incredible conversation. And then last week we had Bishop Billy Baskin, the legend himself, and man, the mind that brother has is just remarkable. But today I wanted to go back down south and to pull a legend in his own right, who has done tremendous work, not just in South Florida, not just in South Dade, but really across the country and other parts of the world. And I'm honored to consider him as an uncle. I consider him as such because my father considers him as a brother, and he's been nothing but an uncle to me, and I'm honored to have him. So I want to thank everybody. I want everybody to say hello to Bishop Carlos, or Apostle Carlos L. Malone Sr. Hey, sir.
What's going on, nephew? Nephew, how
All
are
right.
you?
We can't hear you, man. You're not on. Your
Yeah, I don't know.
your
We kind of
mic
got a bad connection.
is
I'm
not
kind of
on.
breaking up here.
Okay.
Can you hear me
You have
now?
the pressure mic on your end.
My mic is on. They turned it. My mic is on. Let me see.
Okay.
Because I heard you earlier. I haven't touched anything. It
All
says
right.
everyone can
Got it.
see and hear me. Yeah, I know this is a
Got
little
it.
time delay
All
between
right.
us.
So
Lots of
I think
static.
they
I don't
can
know
hear
where it's
us.
coming from.
So, sir, how have you been, man? How you been, huh? What's been going on with you?
I'm good, man. Just
You here? Okay.
trying to
All right.
well, not trying to, just really can they hear me? Okay, basically I'm
Okay.
just is what I said to someone who asked me that question, asking me how I'm doing. I'm telling them I'm just embracing the new opportunity to be creative, doing ministry and um, staying on top of the situation and not letting the situation get on top of me. Yeah, but I'm good, man.
Okay.
Can you hear me yet?
Okay. Can you hear me now? Because for some reason, we
Yeah,
can't.
I can
We
hear
having
you.
some
Can you hear me?
difficulties. Isn't that amazing how it just technology uh has a way of always messing us
Yeah,
up
technology is
when
something.
we trying to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Let's try
I
this
don't know. You
again.
need me to go out and try to come back, see what happens?
Okay. Can you hear me now, Unc? You good? Well, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good then.
Can you
We
hear
good?
me?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're good. We're good on my
Okay.
end. Okay. All right. So we jump right back into it. We jump right back into it. So, man, uh, I'm glad that you're doing well, man. You look well. And man, how many years of ministry have you? How many years have you been putting in ministry, Doc?
43.
43.
43 years.
Wow,
Yep.
man, that's
43 years,
amazing.
man.
Now it started where?
And in East St. Louis, Illinois. I was 19 at age 19. Yep.
Wow.
East St. Louis, Illinois, is when my ministry started. I call April 21st, 1977.
Okay.
You
Wow.
were nowhere thought about.
It wasn't even thought about at all. At all.
Hmm.
At all. At all. And so how has how has church
Not
changed?
at all.
How has church changed since you started in East St. Louis
Oh my
to
God.
now?
Hmm. In some ways, church changed, but I think I changed first. I tend to change churches. I, because sometimes churches don't always make those transitions. And I think that's the unique thing about my ministry is that I've been able to be in a sense, for lack of a better word, a game changer in the sense of being able to challenge ministries to move beyond the norm. So, and I think the most important thing is not so much of the church changing as much as I changed and then people change because sometimes men's systems don't change. I can, I don't see you no more. You're gone.
I'm
I
here.
don't hear
You
anything.
got me?
I think it's the connection. Man, we having a bad connection, right?
Yeah. Can you see me now?
Yeah, I see you now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it is
Mhm.
something going on with connection to internet. Um, but yeah. So man, so you say that you have been one to change the norms and to kind of just be that maverick in a sense that doesn't just flow with the flow, but you seems like it from what
Mhm.
I've been watching you since I was a kid, man. It seems as if you just been trying to follow the flow of God rather than the flow of what has been.
Mhm.
And so, how is that? Can
Yeah, that has.
go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So,
Finish the question. Go ahead.
so my question would be like, what did that journey look like for you? Like, what was the different movements, the different flows that you kind of came in and out of, during your journey?
Mhm. Well, for me, from the beginning of my ministry, because I'm God trained, because that was what the Lord told me, that I would not be be man trained. And I didn't, when he said it, I didn't know what he was talking about. But as time went on, I understood that my ministry, that I had to totally submit to him and to be intentional in my pursuit of him. So I developed a level of confidence in that relationship because I didn't have um, a lot of other in between voices. Well, I've had mentors and things of that nature, but oftentimes I've kind of gone against the grain. They would say, "Don't do this," and I would do. They do this, and I would do the opposite. Some instances because some of the things that I was told just didn't register with my spirit. So it looked, and but by the time, fast forwarding though, but Bethel is my third church. I pastored first in East St. Louis, then in Daytona, and then I came here. So I was 4 years in my first church, 4 years in the second church I pastored, and then I've been at Bethel now for 30 years. And when I came to Bethel, I'd had enough experiences and on both sides of the religious coin, religion versus relationship with God. And nephew, honestly, it's been a journey, man. I guess I was so excited about the journey until I was not impacted by the noise. I wasn't impacted by the noise or the nuances that were saying, this is not how this is done. some of the pastors were telling me, Malone, you crazy, you crazy, Malone, don't do that, man. You ain't been long enough, you got to wait at least 7 years. And I was like, man, 7 years from now, I'll be almost 40. And I just went with God, man. I went with God, and I can't give anybody credit overall in the full sense of the sense in full scheme of the sense of the scheme that of what really impacted me was my confidence in God, man. And it did it had some rough moments. Now it had some rough moments, but I was too afraid of God to be scared of man.
Yeah,
So
man,
so I chose to obey God.
that's pretty heavy, and just knowing um, partially your journey. Um, I know that you
Mm-hmm.
we're part of the Baptist denomination at one point. Then
Mm-hmm.
was one of the founding members of the Full Gospel Fellowship, and then to kind of go from there and kind of
Mm-hmm.
just as you mentioned before, just going against the grain and finding your own flow. And so can you
Mm-hmm.
can you just speak a word of advice um and wisdom for that young pastor that wants to go against the grain as well, but fear, it's kind of stopping him or her, or that young pastor that's trying to make certain moves and follow the ears of God, or the voice of God, but yet they hear still the overpowering voice of men and women that's telling them to go a different direction. Is there any word of wisdom that you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
give to them before we shift to something else?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say that you got to evaluate your loyalty. You got to evaluate and assess your loyalties. Um, you to determine whose voice you're going to hear, and any voice that doesn't sound like what God is saying is a voice you shouldn't pay attention to anyway.
Mm,
And some people are so relationship dependent that they give too much power and control and influence to those earthly voices, as opposed to as opposed to saying, okay, let me hear from my earthly voices to make sure that what I'm hearing heavenly is accurate. That's wrong. You want to make sure you listen to your heavenly voice, make sure that what you're hearing on earth is accurate. And so I say to that young pastor, you're going to have to decide again where your allegiances are going to be, and nobody and nothing should ever take the place of God's voice. And if you're willing to do that, you're going to lose some people, But I mean, that's all a part of it. At the end of the day, I want to end up with God, man. I want God's side. I don't care about nobody else. And that's just a hard, cold fact.
right. Yeah, man, that's great stuff, huh? Man, that's great stuff. Um, so I want to shift the conversation, because right now the country is in crisis, and not just the country, but the
Mm-hmm.
church uh, is feels like it's in crisis as
Mm-hmm.
well, with all of this COVID-19, and church doors are closing, and also unfortunately there are some churches that actually just last week just heard of a church that's actually closed, which means after everything is over they ain't coming back. And so now we have a president, or a political figure that is saying he wants all churches open, and he wants everybody to come back to church and everything. And there are some people that are shouting hooray on that, and they'll say, hey, let's go, let's have church. And then there are others that are saying,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about this. So before we answer that question, first I want to ask you, how are you doing, during this whole pandemic? How's Bethel kind of coping with everything? Um, and then kind of want to shift into what should the church be doing while this is going on, while all this is going on.
The one word that we're gonna the operative word that we have to keep in proper perspective is the word church. When we start saying church, we've got to make sure we understand what that is. We got to understand that we must understand what that is. But as far as myself is, I believe in process. I believe that everything that happens for a reason. I think that everything that whenever God tells us to do something, He's already considered everything. He knows what's coming, He knows what's going. And I think that basically this is just a punctuation mark.
Mm.
I believe that the pandemic is only a punctuation mark. It's just an emphasized emphasis that God is making a point. God is allowing a point to be made. And I think we need to pause to discover what that point is. And there are times when you read in the Bible, if you, for instance, Solomon prayed to God in chapter 6, and in chapter 7, at the end of the prayer, the Bible says God answered him. But when you study it, it is believed that it wasn't an immediate answer, that there was possibility of many months and years in between Solomon's prayer and not responding. The problem with us is that we don't have an unction of what consecration means. We don't have an unction of what consecration means and what it means to actually wait on God, what it means to have endurance and temperance and patience. James tells us that we must let patience must have its perfect work. Whatever this process is meant to do, we need to make certain that we pause for station identification, hear from God, not panic under the pressure of false um, false reasons as to why we want to come back to the building. You know, there we make certain that we hear God in a moment. And so what I'm doing, nephew, is just trying to hear God. And I'm going here. I'm hearing Him because here is something that I've been saying, and I say this in every conversation I have with people. Any process that you don't complete, you will have to repeat. Any
That's good.
process that you don't complete, you will have to repeat. I'm
Wow.
not going through this again. So I'm going to stay in it until the Lord says release. And the thing about it, I've seen a merging of generational cultures, generational relationships, generational divides, even on the technical side. Whereas the older people was not understanding why the young people why they do Facebook, why they do Instagram, why they're doing Twitter, why they're doing Snapchat. And now we have been forced to have used all of those social media outlets in order to communicate the word of God
Mm.
to our people, which is a beautiful thing. And so You got to let this thing do what it does.
Yeah, man, that's absolutely so good, man, and it's so profound. So let me ask you this, because my wife and I we've been kind of like talking about this for since actually this thing happened, trying to figure out, all this. Yes, I agree with you. It's that God is taking us through a process as the church. We're going through a process, and God is he's attempting to achieve something within us. And so our question
Mm-hmm.
has been for the past, couple months, what is God trying to make us look like after all of this is over? What should the church look like? What should the church be doing? What is the flow and the move of God that he's looking for when Corona has been, handled, when churches are reopened or the buildings are reopened? What is God looking for us to look like when we come out of this? And man, I love to hear your thoughts on that, man. Is that something that you've pondered or thought about?
Oh yeah. Most definitely. I want to answer that too. God wants the church to look like the church. He wants the church to look like the church he 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 established, not this thing that we have created, but that which he has created. Um, I believe that I believe that we have to be in the world and not so much in our building. All of our emphasis, we tend to reduce location. Everybody come to us. There's a lot of money in advertising people to come to us. Uh-oh, I got lost. Dang. We spend a lot of time doing things to get people to come to us, but not enough things that cause us to go to the people.
Mm,
And I think that that's part of what God is doing with us. He wants us to move beyond these buildings, man. Man, do you know how much money we spend on these buildings? Do you not know how much money we are spending on these buildings? Do you not know that that mortgage payment, those utility bills, the insurance, all of those costs are still having to be paid and ain't nobody occupying them?
right, right. Yeah, yes, sir.
And our mission budgets, our evangelism budgets don't compare to what we spend just on facility usage. And I believe that the church is in an identity crisis, is having an identity crisis. It does not know what it's supposed to look like. It does not know what it's supposed to look like. And I've said this here, quote, I just mentioned it again, and I don't know if I mentioned on this last call, but that the Spark told me several years ago that the church is pregnant, but with another man's baby, because what we see does not look like him.
Wow.
And we are supposed to be reflecting him in every way. And what we're doing for the most part is empowering our fan base. We are
Mm,
empowering our fan base and not empowering followers of Jesus Christ. Most people in church couldn't witness or testimony or win a soul to Christ if their life depended on it.
wow. That's heavy. That's elephant heavy. And man, that just is That's about as heavy as that elephant behind your head, man. That is that man. So so with um so the church is supposed to be the church. And as you mentioned, we've put a lot of our time, money, resources, energy on the facility of the building, and not the building of other people. Matter of fact, that was when my wife and I we went to Israel in 2019 or 2018. Went to Israel in 2018, and when I was out there, man, it was beautiful. But the one thing that I heard and I realized and that God spoke to me, the one resounding thing, was we went up to the Mount of Beatitudes, and we went with the group, and there was this church that's on the top of the mountain, this building that's on top of the mountain, built with marble, beautiful art inside, and big shrine and everything on the inside of the building. And I went in with the whole crowd. It was big crowds of people. Everybody was in there. They were looking at the art and looking at the artifacts and looking at the building, and people were crying and people were praying and people were singing and everything. And honestly, the only thing I felt was, man, it's hot in here and there's no air conditioning. And so I end up leaving the building. And when I went and left the building, I went outside and I found an area that was just grass, green grass, flowers, overlooking the Sea of Galilee. And it was when I was there, while everybody else was inside the building, when I was on the side of the mountain, looking at the sea, looking at the grass, I sat down on the ground, and then I literally, Uncle, I literally heard, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they should be comforted." And so I realized and the rest of the tour, that we were there for like 13 days. The rest of the tour, I realized that everywhere Jesus built people, people built buildings. Everywhere everywhere Jesus built people, the people in turn built buildings. And that's not, and to your point, that's not what God has called us to. He didn't call us to build just buildings. He's called us to build people. And for the last 2 years, in 2019 and 2020, that's been our focus at Greater Macedonia. Our theme has been building the kingdom by building people. And so, with that in mind, my question to you would be, that now we are faced with this green light, go ahead, to say, hey, listen, let's go back into the buildings. And everybody, let's go back in and let's just act like nothing happened. And so what would you say to the pastor and leader that's kind of contemplating when the right time is to go back and to do worship in the sanctuary? But from what I've heard from you, that you're saying that we shouldn't just go back to the building, but we should have something else in place where we're able to worship and touch people continually outside of it. And so if you can speak to that, man.
Well, see, the one of the things that I talked about was to make sure that as we don't collapse under any self-serving pressure. that is pushing us to make a decision ahead of God's completion of us in this process. We can't have any predetermined. I mean, no early exits from the process. You got to make sure, and each pastor has to have an individual idea of this. You have to make certain that you see the substance change in you and in your congregation, and that it is clear that we are going to be the true church of Jesus Christ. That we're not going to go through this and you can't tell and you can't even tell we've been through it, other than the fact that we just ain't been in this building. There has to be some transition, some transformation. Something has to happen. That shows that we are serious about God, man, and that we are serious about this work that He's called us to. This ain't about being in no building, man. This is about being the actual church of Jesus Christ. If you remember when when Jesus spoke to Simon Peter on the coast of Caesarea Philippi, He said, upon this rock, I'll build my church. He wasn't talking about a building. He was talking to a person. He said, on this rock, I will build a church. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it. He was talking to an individual.
Right.
We are that force. The devil is not trying to keep you out of your building. He's trying to keep you out of the world.
Wow.
See,
wow.
You're no threat to the devil going to. You're no threat to the devil going to the building. You're a threat to the devil when the people in the building go to the world. And that's what we got to get. We got to have that understanding. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Oh.
You run into the church, devil. Hey, nephew. Listen, nephew. The devil is saying, y'all hurry up and go back to church. Hurry up and go back to church so y'all can get back to doing what you've been doing, which is nothing.
Oh man! Wow.
Yeah,
so,
man.
So you just opened up another like can of worms with this. I'm trying not to go down that route a whole lot, but because they're individuals that are saying that administrations, whether it be locally, nationally, statewide, or whatever, that they're on the church's side because they're fighting for the church to get back into their buildings. But from what you're saying, that may not be the Lord working through individuals. That may be another tactic to get the church out of the world and get them contained back in their little jars of church. Wow.
Of comfort. Everybody always, everybody's trying to get back to what makes them comfortable. I'm hearing preachers saying it's just hard for me to preach and then nobody in the audience. Well, bruh, I mean, what you need? Cheerleaders? I mean, I don't know everybody else, but I'm having fun. I miss the fellowship of the saints. I miss the fellowships of the saints because I'm a people's person. I'm a hands-on, touching kind of person. But in this situation, even when we come back, we got to still be social distant, even among each other.
Right.
Even when we come back, we're not going to be able to shake hands. We're not going to be able to embrace people. What if someone just needs a hug or just need the affection of their man of God laying hands on them?
Yeah. That's amazing.
I mean, so
Yeah. So there's a question from my brother and your nephew and he and I, the Pastor Kenneth D. Duke, he and I, we talk consistently all the time
mhm,
um, about our experiences in South Florida ministry, and him and I, we always reminisce on the seven gatekeepers era of Miami when you had
mhm,
Carlos Malone, an Al Jackson Sr., and an Arthur Jackson III, and a Randall Holtz, and a Carl Johnson, a Victor T. Curry, and a Kenneth A. Duke, and these guys coming together, these major
mhm.
preachers and pastors in by themselves coming together for something, man, that we've never seen done before, and honestly haven't seen done again in our context. And you're talking about packing out the James L. Knight Center for church. It was
Mhm,
absolutely
mhm.
just a tremendous move. And so Pastor Kenneth D. Duke, my brother, he asked the question. He says, what do you feel your generation of pastors contributed to the church? And what contribution do you feel that our generation coming up now should make to the church today?
It was a little disconnect there. If you can repeat that again for me, because we're breaking up really bad.
Okay. So he asked the question of what do you think your generation of pastors contributed to the church, and what contribution do you feel our generation should make to the church?
Um, I would say that our generation has been able to. I'm saying this very metaphorically, and some may be offended by what I'm about to say. I believe that our generation got us in the playoffs, got us through the playoffs, and I believe your generation is supposed to carry us through the finals.
Okay. So break that down for me, y'all. You can't just drop it like that, man. You got to break that down for me,
What
y'all.
has Yeah, yeah. See, I believe that our generation, my generation, we took and broke the barriers of tradition. We confronted the traditions and we broke the traditions, and we took the church into dimensions that the local church had not gone into. Now we have to understand, we have to be willing to embrace new players, embrace the next generation, and push them to take the next level.
Mm,
Um, because with the technology, with all of the stuff that your generation has, um, your generation has more resources than what we had. We had a lot of vision, but not a lot of resources. This
mm,
generation has a lot of resources, but unfortunately, in many cases, not a lot of vision. And so those that has to be a synergy. There has to be a merging of those generations together. To the most important thing is to get the trophy. And some people are better in the season, while other players are better in the playoffs and the
mm.
championships.
Oh, that's great stuff. I love that. I love that. So from your estimation, your generation has breaking down a lot of the traditions, and that I absolutely agree with that. There are a lot of things that your generation has
Mhm.
been able to kind of deconstruct that were hazardous to the church, um, and and that stopped a lot of relevant ministry. And so now we have this opportunity um, to kind of pick up the ball from where you all left it and now take it to the end zone and preferably, man, make a touchdown and get that championship. And so I'm absolutely, I agree with that. Um, I want to
Well,
shift.
let me say,
Go ahead.
nephew. Let me say this. I don't think it's so much of where we left it, but where we should have been passing it. See, it
Mm,
wasn't about leaving left the ball or dropped the ball, but where we passed the ball. Here is the key: we we cannot expect David to wear Saul's armor.
mm.
We cannot expect David to wear Saul's armor. What
Oh,
we go see, we can't give you the ball and put you in the game and expect you to wear them little low draws like shorts that we played in back in the day. Y'all got a whole different swag, and we got to let you function in that swag. I'm just trying to just get in the way, easy. I'm trying to make this stuff light.
I got you. Yeah, yeah, you got it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So at that, man, you just messed me up when with the image of little shorts, man. My mind went right there, and yeah, I got you. Oh man, so so
Oh.
so this is a question from Pastor Keith Butler, and Pastor Keith Butler says, "How do you transition in these times of religious methods without changing the right message? Meaning communion, baptism, revivals. How do we facilitate that without losing the I guess the foundation of the principles that make it significant, make it special?"
Okay, how do you transition in these times of religious methods without changing the right message? Okay, communion, baptism, revival, etc. Okay. I don't think that anything has to change in regards as far as communion is still is still what it is. Uh, that doesn't have to happen at church. The communion service in the early church happened in the home anyway, happened in house churches. So that doesn't have to happen there. Baptisms, water baptism can still happen. Um, and I think that when we start talking about revival, um, a lot of revivals are oftentimes called for are held because of financial survival.
Mm,
They become fundraisers. They become fundraisers um, that impact our budgets. When in actuality, a revival is supposed to the word has to bringing something back from the dead. You have to identify what's dead and then resurrect it. You just don't have general revival. Just what we call Bible is bringing in the preacher for days and we gather for church. Not necessarily revival. A lot of times that's just survival because you got to meet that budget. But we just have to have a different perspective, man. We got to have a different perspective about what God intended and not what we are just initiating. It's got to be, everything has to be about what God intended us to do. This ain't our church, bro. This ain't our church. It's his. It belongs to Jesus Christ. It's not the place for recreation. It's the place for recreation. We're supposed to be recreating people, changing people's lives. You know, people should be growing and maturing to where they don't even need to come to the building. They can just send their offerings to support the work, but people should be growing, man. But what we're doing, we're going to church. We're going through church instead of growing through church. And it's an insult. It's an insult to the name of the Lord, because a lot of this hype, a lot of it is just hype. It's not help. It's not hope. It's temporary perspiration. That's no inspiration nor any impartation. And until we understand why we have the church, we're supposed to be developing people and making them disciples. We should be raising up people who don't need us. As long as your people need you, it means that they're not growing. And that's what's wrong with the church now, man. We're not making disciples. We got an audience full of fans. And we got more fans than Jesus has followers. You know, anyway. Man, you got me started, man. How can you put me on this stuff like this, man? Is this can other people see this, or this just a private conversation? I mean, I'm just saying, man. It's because it's a part of my frustration. You know, because it's a part of my frustration, because I don't understand why we don't get it. I don't understand why we don't get it. And I really do. It's because I'm not consecrated enough. You know, we're not in his presence enough. We're not in his presence. We called, nephew, we are called to be representatives of him. And we've allowed ourselves, man, to become contaminated with so much stuff, man, that has nothing to do with the advancement of the kingdom of God, man. I ain't trying to keep no tradition other than that God be glorified, that Jesus Christ is exalted, that the Holy Spirit is empowered in the lives of people, and God's people become who they need to be in him. Point blank.
Woo. Dog. Woo. Man, Apostle, man, you are doing it, man. There was a question from my baby mama, Dr. Jackson. She asked the question of how do we become this way, talking about the way you're talking about, when the other way is deeply embedded in leaders and members.
Decide who you're going to follow and start following that, and let the other stuff go.
Just as simple as that.
See, Al, listen to this. Listen to this, nephew. Everything that you went to, everything that we went to, we may not always, we may not have always been sent to and are called to. And I guess there's a difference in being called to and sent to. Because sometimes God will call you to something and call you to one thing, send you to something that's opposite of that, so you can bring out the people out of that who are supposed to be in what he's put on you. And so sometimes you got to be willing to just move on and take the people who are serious about it. Because all you have is the support you get anyway. That's all you got anyway. You ain't everybody's pastor in those churches.
Wow. So it first of all, you messed me up with everywhere that you went to. That doesn't mean you've been called to. That in itself, man, is major. And so, and talking about, because you mentioned something I want to kind of go back to, I want to kind of backtrack. To you say that
Mhm.
your generation was not supposed to, I guess, drop the ball or leave the ball or put down the ball and then we pick it up, but more so hand the ball and pass
Mhm.
the ball
Mhm.
and then let us run with it and go with it. So um
Mhm.
what would you say to the leader that's trying to figure out, number one, who do I pass the ball to? And then number two, when do I pass it to them?
Mhm.
And the young preacher that says, whose
Mhm.
ball should I receive from? And then what happens when a ball has not been given to me? But yet there's a ball on the ground that somebody has fumbled. How do I pick that up and run with it? And so, because right now we got two different generations of people that are kind of watching, and both of them have those kinds of conversations
Mhm.
and issues that they have to work out. So, what would you say to those individuals?
It's oh Lord Jesus, help me now. Um, well, first of all, the father son relationship, because we don't understand the whole purpose of the father son connection. See, we should be raising sons. I'll wait till you come back because I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I'm with you.
Are you with me?
Yeah, you keep going. I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of lost you for a minute. Okay. Yeah. So in our church, what I've established is I'm raising sons and daughters. I'm not raising members. Members leave you. Your children stay with you. And until there's a trust between the father and his children, the sometimes the father will stay longer than he should. Transition as a senior leader is not always when you ready as much as it is when your sons are ready. You know, it's not you don't make your exit just when you ready. You make your exit when they're ready. And oftentimes what needs to happen, even okay, just say in a church situation, shouldn't be no voting, no committees meeting to elect no pastor. That pastor should already have his successor in place, and the transition should happen not when that senior pastor retires, because when he brings that son in to take over, he should spend some time there with him so that he can help the people to become loyal to his son. But because we don't understand sonship, we don't understand the Elijah Elisha relationship. Because we don't understand that, then our flesh gets in the way when we and then we become jealous and we become envious of each other, and then we trust in the very people that we license. So there's going to have to be um, a more emphasis of understanding that father son connection, because come on, it's a big difference between when someone is your son and your daughter than when they are just a member of the church you pastor. You got to raise some sons. You got to raise up sons, and you got to understand what it means to be a father.
Wow. So what would you say to the pastor that does not, that failed or could or did not take the initiative to birth a son or a daughter in ministry to take on the work that that they have? Uh,
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. I don't
Okay.
see you, but I hear you.
Okay. Well, then they just gonna see you. So yeah, what would you say to the pastor who has not been able to create a son, or to birth a son or daughter to do the work of the ministry, but yet they've come to the point where it's, their time is running out, and they have to pass the ball to somebody. How does that pastor navigate?
Well, you do. Okay. Okay. Here's what you do. You do what people do when they can't have no kids. You adopt.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And the only problem with adoption, see, but see, the only thing is, unless you're willing to make some adaptions, don't mess with adoption.
Break that
You
down,
know,
man. Break that down, Doc, because you hitting heavy.
you, you, you see, your heart towards younger pastors and younger men of God and women of God, your heart towards them has to be in the right place. Because sometimes some people are not having kids because they're taking birth control to make sure that they don't, because they don't want to share.
Unc, I really want you to know how much you killing me today, man. You are, oh, man. You are really, you're blessing us, man. You are blessing us. You're blessing us. And so I appreciate it. Listen, I'm wanting to ask a final question, because our we've hit the hour mark, and
Oh,
I
have
want to
we?
make sure.
We sure have.
Yeah, we hit the hour mark, and I want to be respectful of you. I want to make sure that we're good, and I want to respect time. But thank you so much, Apostle, for sharing this. But I want to hit one more thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
leave you alone for the day. So you've written a book, that's a tremendous book, called Rib Connection, and it's a book that
Mm-hmm.
helps us to look at marriage in a biblical sense and healthy sense. So during this
Mm-hmm.
quarantine time, when spouses are, literally kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuck together in a house, together, what are some things that husbands and wives can do
Mm-hmm.
to build on the relationship, to build on their marriage, to take this time as an opportunity to grow, rather than just an opportunity that they have to just kind of go through. Can you speak to that?
I think that, well, first of all, let me just say this here, just while I'm thinking about it, because I said this from the beginning, as it relates to relationships, I did say this, that social distancing or the pandemic is going to show people who are married what they can live with or what they can't live without.
Mm,
So I just want to just put that out there
wow.
just for now. Now, move forward is is that I believe that one of the things that happens in relationships is that people, in an effort to be connected with each other, tend to lose perspective on their individuality. Because anytime you try to to make another person totally fulfill you, they gonna come up short.
Mm,
I don't care how good they are, they gonna come up short.
mm,
The only thing that can fulfill any individual is that individual's God given purpose. And
wow.
in this moment, Yes, you need to have some time together, but this moment is God saying to each of us individually, I need you to get in my face so I can tell you what my plans are for you. Because finding your spouse does not mean losing yourself. And
Wow.
I would recommend that you encourage each individual, encourage your spouse, husbands encourage your wives, wives encourage your husbands to use this moment for an inflection, a internal perspective on yourself, because the better your husband or wife becomes as a person, the better they become for you. And the thing that frustrates people more in a relationship, and they won't admit it, is that they trying to get that person to feel something in them that only they can feel themselves. And so I encourage people to definitely spend more time together, but use this time apart, use this time so you can put yourself in check. Because the worst thing in the world is to try to make happy a person who's not really happy with themselves.
Wow. Man. So I hope you know that we can go a whole nother hour on just off of what you just said just now. But I'm going to resist the urge. I'm going to resist the urge, and we're going to shut it down. But I want to thank you, Apostle, for agreeing to be on today and for blessing us. And I know you've blessed so many people. I'm looking at the comments, reading the comments, and seeing everybody that's on. They absolutely, man, you've been a tremendous blessing to us. And I want to thank you all. And let everybody that's listening to us, please make sure that you like, and you press the like button. You make sure you comment, make sure that you share this video, because somebody on your friends list needs to hear what this great man of God has shared for us today. And I'm absolutely grateful for his time. Oh man, is there anything, man, you want to leave with us, man, before we close out?
Um, I made a note here. I thought that I wanted to say, um, please, during this process, during this process, I want to encourage everybody to watch what they articulate, because of what they articulate, they will activate.
Hmm. Hmm. Man, listen, I just want you to know, man, you've been dropping the mic all day, man. I want to tell you that microphone is dented because it's hit the floor so many times. So, man, man,
Bless you, man.
you
I
blessed us.
appreciate you, nephew, so much.
No, man, I appreciate you, man. You've been absolutely tremendous to us. Listen, everybody, this has been Tim Talks. And the reason why we call it Tim Talks, because these are Pauls that have been talking to Timothy's, and our conversations have been about transformation, innovation, and motivation. And today, Apostle Carlos Malone, matter of fact, let me say it correctly, Apostle Carlos L. Malone Sr. has given us transformation, innovation, and motivation for our lives and ministry. I'm praying this has been a blessing to you. I'm looking forward to next week. Join us right here at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, next Tuesday, as we have another Tim Talks. God bless you. Love you, Great New Macedonia. Love you, Dr. Jamila Jackson. Love you, family and friends, and we look forward to seeing you soon. God bless.
Peace. Do I just log off?